a glance, she's over me. She's over me. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, what the hell was that, huh? Wow. I went through this whole amazing intro. I was just talking away. I was having a good time. Did the intro, and I came back and I asked you guys a question about the sound from the chat room, and I didn't get any responses. I'm like, wow, nobody's talking to me. What the hell is going on? And so there you have it. Wow, that's weird. Very weird. I relaunched it, though. It looks like we are live and underway now, ladies and gentlemen. My God. Let me go back and reintroduce the show. This is The Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I hope you guys are having a good day. Thanks for being here with me. It's great to have you with me because I was all scared and alone there for a while. I thought my chat room was totally ignoring me. Excuse me. And I did announce Saturday's guest, which was, I was going to unveil it to you. It's a guest that's been on the show before. He's really, really well known in the Bigfoot community. So it's an exciting time for us to have him back on the show. I think, I've been listening to him for years, even way back in the Coast to Coast days, when I was first getting my feet wet in the whole Bigfoot idea. And he was the first person to really kind of explain the whys of Bigfoot. Why does it do this? Why does it do that? And I was always wondering, it was the first time that it made sense to me. And I was really excited because he came on the show back when we had just started. We were kind of really green. We didn't have a whole lot of subscribers. We didn't have a whole lot of followers. We were kind of new, and yet he came on and he helped us. And this guest is also one of the first people to go on, one of the first big people to go on Wes's show back when he started. And so it was really cool that he agreed to help us out as well and to come on. And he's coming back on Saturday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it'll be my pleasure to welcome the original Bigfoot outlaw, Mr. Jim the Bear King. Will be coming on the Paranormal Portal Saturday night. And I'm really excited to have him back. He will be here doing what he does. If you've never heard Bear talk, you should definitely hear it. He's just no nonsense kind of guy. He just calls him like he sees it. He's got that deep Southern way about him, and he's a kind man. He's a smart man, even though he tells you he's stupid all day long, like he's just a dumb redneck. He'll say all day long, but the guy's got this stuff dialed in. So the Bear will be on the portal on Saturday night, and it's a great pleasure to be welcoming him back here to the show. And I hope you guys will tune in and join us. But again, Saturday night, the original outlaw, Mr. Jim the Bear King, will be coming on, and we're absolutely thrilled, and it's going to be a great show. So hopefully you guys will join us. We'll be looking forward to that. Yeah, I don't know what the hell was going on with the intro there, man. I was I was just like, what's going on? I'll tell you what. I want you to listen to the sound on this opening segment that I'm going to play. I play it every show, but I want to ask your feedback on it. I want to know if it's coming through kind of distorted to you guys or if it's just in my headphones. So as I do this, please pay attention to the sound and let me know how it sounds on your end, if it sounds okay, if it's just my headphones, or if it's coming through there too. Because if it's a sound issue, I want to chase it down and get it sorted out. So I hope you guys are ready, because it's time for bed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now underway. This is the Night Terrors, of course. It's ghostly encounters we're covering as as well as we usually do here on the Night Terrors. I hope you like ghost stories because these I like. The reason I like ghost stories is not just because I am so fascinated and in love with just the ghost phenomena, but what I'm fascinated with is the fact that a lot of the phenomena that appears in ghost stories is also occurs in some cryptids, Bigfoot situations, also occurs in UFO situations. So I find that it's definitely demonstrating some kind of unified phenomena happening in all of these different causations, whether it's spiritual beings, extraterrestrial beings, or cryptid beings. They all seem to be able to trigger these weird things in our reality, and I think that that's kind of the key. There's something special about that. Now I got to ask you, did that segment I just played sound distorted? So if somebody would let me know, I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to get to the bottom of that, and you guys are my audience. So let me know if it sounded weird or did that sound just normal. Let me know if you could, please. It's just your headset. Okay, well that's great. That's awesome. If that's the case, thank you, Aussie. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to know, like, if there's some other issue going on, I got to know, because like I said, the minion comes into the studio an awful lot. Duke said I was chasing chupacabras, and when I thought I was talking to you guys before, I was saying no, I'm not chasing chupacabras. However, I got a 4-year-old minion that loves to come in here, and nothing is as much fun in a dark studio as stepping on a Lego. Let me tell you, that'll redefine fun in a hurry. So that's the only thing I'm chasing out of studios is the minion. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. If that sounded fine. Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you guys. So let's get to some stories. Let's get this journey underway. Now that we've got a late start, it just means I go a little longer. I'm not going to cut you guys short. It's not your fault that the stream didn't launch like it should have, but looks like we're good to go now. I've got green lights on the connection and everything, so we are solid. And I'm going to start out our journey with this story from Virginia, and it has to do with haunted places. So, again, remember Saturday, Jim the Bear King. Also, got a confirmation on a great show coming up, not only on the 8th when Deb will be here, but on the 16th. We're welcoming a great guest. I'll talk about it when we're closer to that, but I'm really excited. Thank you for being patient while I took a drink. All right, let's go. This is Virginia again. Said, what I'm about to tell you really did happen, but you have to understand, many will believe that it didn't. I'll be honest with you as I do not lie. The story is real, but you have to understand that on the evening in question, I did have a lot to drink. I mean a lot. Probably more than any other time in my life. Even more than the time that I chugged a half-liter of white tequila just to prove I could do it. There are things I remember clearly about the evening in question and others I don't. But this one event is very clear. There were 3 of us, 4 in total, including me, and we had decided to get drunk and bought your standard easily packable liquor and made our way to an old forgotten graveyard that was over 800 yards or so from an old gravel road. We'd been there many times before, but only in the past, and we had never bought or brought so much booze with us before. The graveyard is a great place to visit, always foreboding feeling, and it makes the girls stay real close to you. It's kind of out in the middle of a field surrounded by trees, which is what makes it odd. Nothing grows around it but grass and your occasional wildflower here and there, but no one has tended it that we know of. Most of the stones are old. Some dates on them, some have dates on them, whilst others do not. The oldest we found dated back to 1918. The most recent that I can remember thinking about it was 1932. And what is most odd is the number of stones that indicate children were buried there, but not over the age of 10. On this particular night, we arrived and got right to drinking. We played your normal drinking games and did the normal stupid things. On this night, though, we got very drunk, and rather than exit the area to do our business as we had done before, we just got lazy and did this on the gravestones and the graves. I was the first to pay, no mind, and as I was relieving myself on a particularly inviting stone, a friend said I should stop. It was disrespectful. Well, I, being drunk by then, told him to bugger off, and that dead people have more important things to worry about or to consider. After a short while, it seemed that all except the girls agreed with me and did their business in the same way. I have to admit, to looking back, had I not been so drunk, I never would have done this. Not because I would be worried of anything happening, but because, looking back, it was disrespectful. Later that night, I was propped up against a stone, and Natasha, one of the girls I had come with, was by my side as I peered through the slits in my eyes at the others and the fire we had built. They were laughing and jumping over the fire and doing stupid things like that. And Jim, one of my best mates, looked in my direction, and I thought he was going to say something, and instead his face turned to horror, and he started screaming, "Oh my God, what is that?" Over and over, and he backed into the fire about the third time he said this, and tripped and fell into it. It wasn't a large fire, but his shirt instantly ignited, maybe because he had spilled some of the booze on it. Well, I jumped up at this time, somewhat freaked out that he had been screaming for someone to help him, and put out the flames. And as I moved closer, he rolled out of the fire saying, "Oh my God, get it away from me, get it away." The others asked, "Jim, what are you talking about? Get it away." And to this, he only started crying and blubbering. As I attempted to get him get him off the ground, the others who were doing the same mentioned it was getting very cold. They couldn't believe how cold it was. And asked them what they were talking about because it was just as warm as it had been when a sudden silence fell over my friends. Bob, who was there, first said in a timid voice, Did you hear that?" Stuttering. Well, I looked at him and said, "What?" His face grew ashen. My friend who was holding Jim up let go and dropped him. For a second, as if slow motion, everyone paused, and then they all took off running towards the road screaming, and Natasha, who had been behind me, started screaming, "Don't leave me." And then some of the others screamed back as they ran, "Run, oh my God, run." And so she began to, but as she got closer to me, I was still standing there now, believing that they were playing a joke, and she started blubbering. "Oh God, Jim, don't let it hurt me. Please, please, please don't let it hurt me." As Jim slowly stood up, I looked into her eyes with a smile, trying to tell her that the joke was up, but as I looked at her, I saw a face full of fear that alone scared me as well. I choked out, "What's wrong?" just in time to hear the most blood-curdling scream I have ever heard. She rushed past me, reaching for Jim's hand, and as she took it, she tripped over my leg, making me lose my balance. I would not normally have done this except for the fact that I was really pissed, meaning drunk. I stumbled back, and to this day I do not know what I tripped on. All I remember is falling backward and everything going completely black. I woke the next morning face down in a ditch halfway between there and my home, and as I stirred, I heard laughter and thought that someone was standing over me. I could barely think and felt like puking, and as I stood up, I remember that my clothes were wet and that I smelled of urine. I thought, oh great, I urinated on myself while I was passed out. However, upon closer inspection, I was soaked from head to toe with it. I looked around to see who was laughing, and believing the same person had probably relieved themselves on me, I saw no one around. I began walking the rest of the way home, and when I got there, after hosing myself off, I called Natasha and asked her what happened the night before, and she asked what I was talking about, and I told her what happened, and she said no one had gone to the graveyard in over 2 weeks, and it had certainly not gone the night before. It's taken me a long time to tell this story. Ooh, do you suppose he Mandela'd right out of that? Do you suppose he did a shift, a dimensional shift maybe? That's really creepy. That's really creepy. So what did they see? What did they see that made them run? I don't know. That's a frustrating story because it leads to so many questions, ladies and gentlemen. What did he see? What did they see? Was it him that was looking weird? Or were they seeing other things around? I don't know. It's very strange. It's also strange that the girl ran right past him and didn't grab his arm, but grabbed the other guy's arm that fell into the fire. That's very strange. I don't know. That almost sounds like some kind of dimensional shift or whatever. And he might have done it. I don't know. That's very strange. I got no answers to that one, ladies and gentlemen. That's a curious one for sure, but a good story. Huh. That one's going to be bugging me for a while. That's how I work, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's read another one here. This is from Michigan, and it's not too long. It's a little bit, not quite a short story, but not really a medium length either. So this one won't take long. It has to do with miscellaneous type of events. So this happened when I was 9 years old, but I really still remember it just as if it happened yesterday. Please pardon the overused cliche. It was in the middle of January, and we were having the worst snowstorm recorded where I lived. Needless to say, all the schools in the district were closed. Around noon, I went out to simultaneously celebrate the rare snow day and revel in the snow with the kids who lived on my block. We all trekked down to the nearby playground, and I suppose it was because there was more unsullied snow there. At one point, the group decided to try to build an igloo, but I quickly lost interest as it was not holding together, and I was tired of being bossed around, so I separated from the group to a fresh patch of snow several yards away. I was going to make a snowman. I just finished the first ball and was already bored and thinking about rejoining the group when I looked at my snowman again, and I saw that there was an older boy standing near it with a grin on his face. I noticed that there was something a little strange about him. His clothing seemed old-fashioned and somewhat ragged, but I didn't mention anything. In fact, we never really said a word to each other, but by the end of the afternoon, we had finished our snowman. I took off my hat and put it on the snowman's head, and the boy unwound the thick woolen scarf around his neck to place it around the snowman's. When he finished, he smiled at me, bent to kiss my cheek. I remember that his lips were cold, but that didn't seem weird to me at first. After all, we had just spent all afternoon playing in the snow. He gave a little wave and turned around to walk away. One of my friends called my name, and I turned to look. They had all given up on their igloo and were heading back home. I followed and didn't give another thought to the strange boy until later. Over hot chocolate, one of my friends commented on how quickly I'd managed to build the snowman. I laughed and told her that it wasn't that hard, I had help. A strange, uncomfortable silence fell over the group. One of the other girls said that they hadn't seen me with anyone. I rolled my eyes, figured they'd formed some sort of collective pact to try to freak me out or something as a way to get back at me, and just let it drop. The next day I went back to the park where we'd been playing. Most of the area was covered in footprints and evidence of my friend's attempts at that igloo, but as I approached my snowman, the footprints thinned out. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were no footprints whatsoever there, not mine and not the boys. The snowman stood alone, surrounded by white snow, untouched except for the tracks where we'd been building the snowball bases. Weird. I stood there for a moment looking around in case the boy was standing nearby, but no one was around. The snowman still wore my hat. I went over to it and retrieved it, and after a moment's thought, I went back and unwrapped the scarf from around the snowman's neck to place it around my own. I still have that scarf, and to this day, I wear it during the winter whenever I'm feeling lonely. That's kind of cool. Huh. So if you had an opportunity to have a piece of something that was carried by a ghost, would you take it? Would you take it? Would you Would you grab it? I mean, now there's the apports, and this is, I suppose it's kind of an apport, APPORT, when things are brought into existence from a ghostly being. I had an agate that my grandfather gave to me. I don't know where it went now, but it's missing. But I carried it for years, and I believe it was an apport from him. Now I've shared that story on the show many times, but would you worry about something like that? Would you worry about this random spirit building a snowman with you, wrapping a scarf around the snowman? Would you think, was this some kind of setup? Is this how the attachment starts? I don't know. It seemed benign. It seemed gentle enough. It seemed like just a neat experience. I think I would want to. And I think that the thing that would be most curious is if there was any way to see any kind of physical difference between a normal scarf and this scarf. Because, I mean, theoretically, this scarf was manifest at that point, because if this was indeed a ghost, and it sounds like it was, or some kind of otherworldly being anyway, by virtue of it being manifest, is there something different to it? I don't know how you'd know. I don't know how you'd tell unless you could possibly look at it through something with incredible magnification. Would it have any variations from what we would normally see in scarves or materials? I don't know. It's probably a stupid idea now that I think about it, but you'd have to wonder, because you're looking at and handling something that was brought into existence at that moment. Because did it exist prior to it going around the snowman? And I would have to say, well, no, kind of not, because it wasn't actually manifest except as part of this apparition. So therefore it was just completely an energy representation. But once the boy took it off and put it around the snowman, it became physically manifest, and not just an energy representation, right? I don't know. This is a look into how my head works, ladies and gentlemen. But I think that stuff is just neat. I don't know, something that's actually been passed through a dimension. I mean, literally. But maybe that happens all the time. Maybe it's not uncommon, as we've talked about on the show, if there are these portals that happen all the time, and if, we go in and out of them all the time without even knowing it, which is a possibility. I don't know. Very cool story, though. I like that one. The next one is coming from Utah. Let's see. Am I missing anything? Nope. Looks good. Okay. Utah is miscellaneous category as well, so lots of different things potentially represented in this story. How long is it? No, this isn't too long either. It says, all my life, I've spent every summer in Montana at the powwow. I learned the way of the warrior, but it was the summer I turned 18 that I first learned of the spirit warriors and met my first teacher. And it wasn't until later I discovered my teacher had been dead for almost 200 years. Wow, this is starting out awesome. I was sitting in my tent working on some new moccasins when I heard someone outside call my name. I stepped out into the open and saw an old man standing beside the trees on the edge of the firelight. He had a white owl on his shoulder and a black wolf sitting at his feet. He smiled at me and said, "My name is Ravenwalker. Come, I have things I must teach you." I had never seen him before, and many will call me stupid for following him, but I felt no malice about him. I followed him away from camp to a small clearing where a single tent was set up. We entered the tent and sat down. The wolf and raven settled down near him, and he began to speak. "I've watched you for some time, and feel you are now ready to be shown a path few can or will follow. It is the path of the spirit warrior. I know about your experience in the abandoned house and your triumph there. It is that triumph which told me you are ready to begin your true calling. He told me there's a timeless war being fought between good and evil, and both sides have champions to fight for them. The gods themselves can't enter the war on earth, or they would destroy this world and all the others with the sheer amount of power they wield. Therefore, the light and the dark call for champions to fight in their place. Some answer the call to become healers, and others to become warriors. He told me it was my time to choose which path to follow. If I choose the path of the warrior, he had much to teach me. I chose the warrior's path, and he did indeed have much to teach me. I still do not remember every detail of what he taught me, but as I need it, or as I can understand it, I remember more of it. I sat with him in his tent talking and learning for what seemed like a few hours. When we were done, I stepped outside and walked back to my tent, and when I got there, I found my brother, grandparents, and several others frantically searching for me. When they saw me, they asked where I'd gone, and when I told them, they shook their heads, and my brother said, "We looked all over for you. You have been gone almost a week." I took my grandfather and brother to the clearing where I had been, and I was shocked to find no sign of a tent or the old man. When I told my grandfather the old man's name, he nodded thoughtfully and said, "Then you have been called down the path of the spirit warrior." He laughed at my shocked look and said, "One of your ancestors who lived many years ago, was named Ravenwalker. He was a powerful shaman and a spirit warrior. When he grew to be so old he could barely walk from swollen joints, he walked off into the woods and vanished. This was sometime in the year 1797. And ever since then, those in our family who are destined to become spirit warriors or healers meet him." Now that's beautiful. Wow. Huh. Is it possible? Sure. Sure it is. I mean, these kind of meetings, of course, sound real Hollywood, right? It's our belief is that they are Hollywoodized versions. But I think that these things do happen. I think that people do have these meetings with these incredible teachers, these, divine representatives on earth. And I think that people do have those moments. Have you ever read, one of my favorite books of all time is The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And they made an Amazon Prime movie about it. And if you get a chance, look it up. I think it's called The Peaceful Warrior or something like that. I think that's what they called it on Prime. But if you get a chance, read the book. It's a very well-written book, and he meets a person who he calls Socrates. And I don't think that was really his name. It was just his nickname for him. But he just had this chance meeting. And he met him at a gas station of all places where this guy was working the overnight shift. But it's just the neatest story. And it's the neatest evolution of finding yourself in our modern world, finding those old lessons still being represented in our modern world. And I think it's a beautiful book. So again, it's The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. If you haven't read it and you're interested in that kind of thing, I would really recommend it. I love that book. I haven't read it for years and years now, but it still is with me to this day. It was one of those formative books that I read when I was in my 20s, just looking to understand the world, and it was great. So I hope if you're interested in that, you'll check it out. But I believe these things happen because that's what he described in his book. Could it be fiction? Sure, it could be fictionalized. Now I know that The Way of the Peaceful Warrior isn't an exact autobiography of this experience. He does say that there really was a person that he named Socrates, and he talks about that it was somebody, and I don't remember all he said about it, but he said that the book is not only the teachings from that, but from other things in his life as well. But it's captured into this narrative. But I think these things can happen, ladies and gentlemen. I think they do. Sometimes they happen in the form of for lack of a better term, spirit quests or spirit visions, or, sometimes they happen in our altered states, whether, you use different substances like DMT or ayahuasca or mushrooms or something like that. People can have these profoundly spiritual experiences and have these dialogues and discussions with what appear to be these masters. But people sometimes have these experiences without those kind of things, that just by a chance encounter. So I really believe that stuff is possible. And I think that, it's a real thing. At the very least, I want it to be, because it still means that, there's still people looking out for us and trying to help us. But I really do sincerely believe that that's possible. So take it or leave it. It's up to you. I don't mean to preach. It's not my place to tell you what to believe or not to believe, but I'm just sharing with you that I believe that these things are possible. I know I've bumped into some people and had some pretty incredible experiences that I can't explain. And I've had people disappear on me, or a person anyway, disappear on me. Like literally turn my head and turn back and it was gone. The person was gone. I don't know. It was really a profound experience for me. So anyway, let's continue on. The next one is from Utah, and this is by the same author. And it says, with permission, I'm telling these tales of my grandfather, my mom's dad, seeing ghosts. He was 16 years old at the time, and this one happened. He was sent to the basement to get something, and while he stood at the bottom of the stairs searching the shelf full of jars for the one that he wanted, he felt someone watching him from behind. He turned to find himself face to face with his mom, who had died when he was 12. Well, he dropped the jars he was holding in his hands and ran back upstairs and refused to go back into the basement alone. He says he now wishes that he hadn't run away from her, but stayed to see what she wanted. He's never seen her since and wonders what she wanted. This wasn't the last time he was to see a ghost. When he was young, a young man doing baptisms for the dead, my mom's dad's side of the family were Latter-day Saints, and my grandmother converted to Mary in the temple at Salt Lake Temple. At the time this happened, they used little business card-sized name cards with the information of the deceased being baptized. My grandpa was part of a group doing baptisms, and he could see a group of men sitting in the back row of the room they were in. One by one, as the baptisms were done by a man, a man would get up and leave. Finally, there was only one man left. The baptism began to pack things up as they were done, and Grandpa asked him why they didn't do the last man, and they said that there were no more to be done, but Grandpa insisted that they look again. The man went through the cards one last time and discovered 2 of them had stuck together. The baptism was performed, and the man in the back row smiled at my grandfather and left. That's really cool. Very cool. Huh. All right, let's go to the next one, and this one is coming from Maryland, of all places. We don't see many out of Maryland. Okay, so this author is a young adult, so let's see what's going on. It says, as I've stated in my previous stories about my house, the presence comes and goes, and I also said that the basement gave this dreadful feeling, and I never liked being in there alone. But being that I'm now 19, I decided that I had to face my fears. I decided I'd go sit in the basement while alone in the house. I know, growing balls, right? Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of a rite of passage, I suppose. Well, I would spend time in the basement. I always made sure I was occupied so I wouldn't think about the goosebumps forming on my arms. Days went by and it was uneventful. The floors didn't even creak. So I considered the ghosts gone. I thought all was fine until I felt my face hurting. Over my upper lip, I touched it and it felt like a fresh cut. So I looked in the mirror and realized I did in fact have a cut on my face. Mind you, I bite my nails down until I don't have any, but still, I created some excuse in my mind. Again, I spent all day in the basement until my mom got home at 2 p.m. After she'd get home, I would go upstairs. So I felt the need to take a shower since I didn't do so upon waking up. While washing, I looked into the inside of my arm and found yet another scratch. It was minor and I didn't even feel it, but I was confused about where it had come from. I never felt the sensation of being cut. Another day went by and I had another cut somewhere on my body. And this happened a while ago, so I don't quite remember where the last one was. So I stopped going to the basement alone. Now hey Taco, good to see you, brother. Now, a few weeks ago during my break from school, I was just roaming around in the kitchen. I decided to look out into the backyard because it was a full moon and it was shining bright. So as I was looking through the window, I could see the reflection of things behind me. I thought nothing of it until I saw a dark shadow move by, blocking out the light. I stood up straight and thought maybe I did it, but I had been standing off the right side and the light got blocked off my left. I wasted no more time and returned to my bedroom. I felt the feeling of something over my back again. My guess is, whatever is in my house, it has returned. A few years ago, I'd been sleeping in my bed, but I randomly woke up. Ever wake up and look directly at someone because you know they're in your room? Well, I slowly sat up and looked towards the end of my bed, and there was a young woman smiling at me in that dreamy-like way, kind of like she adored me. She had her hands under her chin, propped up by her elbows, and she was leaning onto my bed. The rest of her body was on the floor, and I stared at her longer and realized she looked a lot like a friend of mine. She eventually disappeared, and I went back to sleep. I wasn't afraid or alarmed. I was just upset. I had just been roused out of my sleep because of her presence. I definitely woke up later completely confused as to why I would see my friend in my room admiring me. Yeah, that's creepy. I don't know. If your friend's still alive, then I don't know. That's very odd. There's some weird stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very strange stuff. All right, let's go pull up some more because we got more time because of that misfire at the beginning of the show tonight. I don't know what the hell happened there. I don't know. Maybe I thought I for sure I clicked to start the stream. Maybe I somehow screwed that up. I don't know. Whatever the case is, we're still going. And I hope you're still enjoying what I'm doing here. Yeah, we still got about 20 minutes. So plenty of time, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, Saturday night, Jim the Bear King will be here on the portal. If you're just coming in and didn't hear that, one of the original Bigfoot outlaws, Jim the Bear King, will be on the Paranormal Portal Saturday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So mark your calendar. Make sure to be here. I'm going to start doing, promotions for it. So just thought I'd let you guys know first since, you guys are here every night and a part of what we're doing. But it'll be a great discussion, great talk. I just love Jim. He's a great guy. The Bear. I shouldn't call him Jim. I call him Bear. That sounds just more right. Okay. The next story I'm reading you is coming from Texas. It says, we all know my husband has had things happen, but would never admit them to me. Well, let me tell you, he has. I am so excited, of course. I didn't tell him that I would post them on here because, I have to take baby steps with that one, okay? This is what he told me. Last night, Sunday, we were laying in bed talking about just random things. Out of the blue, he mentioned something about seeing someone in the front of the house off to the side. If you remember, that's where I always saw the person as well. Well, I don't remember. I don't know who the hell this person is, but anyway. I didn't want to pressure him more than about anything because if I did, I knew that he wouldn't tell me anymore, which I felt like he had more to tell me. I didn't go into much detail about seeing someone outside, but he did tell me that during one weekend, while I was out, he said he heard something like a whimpering sound. And while we don't have any dogs, we do have a cat. And he said that he went and listened to her for a while and came to the conclusion that it wasn't her. He did say that the noise stopped and that it didn't happen for very long, just long enough for him to know that what the noise was. He never brought it up because he said that he felt bad for telling me that it was all in my head and that nothing could really be happening. He also told me something else, which I can remember to this day also. We had a last-minute barbecue one Saturday, and I had to run to the store for some things that we needed, and while I was going out the door, I heard him say, "What the hell?" I mean, I didn't pay any mind to it because I figured, something had happened in the kitchen. Well, I forgot, and he reminded me of that day, and I told him that I remembered. He said, "Well, when you left the kitchen, the jar of mustard was sitting on the floor." He figured I'd put it there to mess with him, and I told him that's not something I would do to mess with you. He said he knew and just went about doing what he needed to do. He told me that sometimes he doesn't like being here alone when I'm not there, and he says it just feels strange. We talked about maybe getting him to bless the house. He's more religious than I am, and I wouldn't know where to begin trying to bless something other than someone when they sneeze. So that's basically all he told me, seeing things out of the corner of his eye, hearing things, but only once he has said something moved, which was the mustard. He says he's not scared, just that sometimes feels uneasy. Well, that's the story. As far as anything happening to me, nothing much other than seeing someone standing outside. Huh. Yeah, I kind of like it when the when the skeptics have their experiences. To me, those are really cool, and I understand that that's kind of maybe crappy on my part, because if a person doesn't really have room in their paradigm for this stuff to happen, and it does happen, it is profoundly hard for them to adjust and to figure out what this all means. I mean, it's profoundly hard for me to figure out what it means, but when you consider that some people take great comfort in the fact that they know their world, they know their days, they know their whole week, what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and that's what they prepare for, that's what they live for. And that structure gives them a sense of security. And when something so profoundly odd and out of the realm of possibility happens, it really sends these people for a loop, to the point that it's hard, very, very hard for them to continue in their normal ways, or they just really work really, really hard to shelf it away as just some weird thing that happened, and they just ignore it. The one coping mechanism they all seem to have is that they very vigorously ignore it, and they won't acknowledge it. They won't talk about it. They're just going to pretend that it's something weird that happened one time, and they're going to shelf it away. And that's understandable too, but I got to say, for as arrogant as some people are about, well, that's all ridiculous stuff, that stuff can't happen, that's just weird, you guys are all flaky. But then when those same people have things happen, it's like, oh, yes, this is good. Because it's not, it's not that I think everybody has to acknowledge this stuff or not. But it's like, if you're going to go out of your way to put people down for having an open mind, then you really need to have an experience of your very own, just so you understand, what it's like in those other shoes, to walk a mile in those other shoes. Some people live with, lifetimes of this kind of activity, and these kind of people haven't had even one event, but when they have one, it's pretty gratifying, even though they, will still probably vigorously defend their paradigm and just try to categorize it away as some silliness or some quirk of their mind or an illusion or a mirage of some kind. I don't know. But I like it. I always like when skeptics kind of get their bell rung a little. All right, so the next one is North Carolina, and this one is haunted places. First, about the inn itself. A couple of years ago, I worked at the 1927 Lake Lure Inn and Spa in beautiful Lake Lure, North Carolina. The facade of the inn is pale yellow stucco with hunter green shutters. Inside the lobby is very spacious and filled with the current owner's antiques and memorabilia from days gone by from the inn. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his wife stayed there during their trip to the western North Carolina. Actors and directors from the movie Dirty Dancing stayed there as well. As many other movie stars and musicians, this is a place to really get away from it all. Antiques tastefully dot the upstairs area of the rooms itself. The original owner, Dr. Lucius Morse, fell in love with the area and wanted to build a hotel there. So around 1925-26, the inn was being built. And in 1927, it was finally opened as the Lake Lure Inn. It was said that he did not live to see the grand opening of the hotel. During World War II, the U.S. Army commissioned the inn, and the men served during the war would stay there and relax or recover from wounds that they had endured. There are many pictures of the soldiers and their families having a grand old time there at the inn. When I first started working at the inn, I felt a little uneasy. I felt like there were 1,000 eyes looking at you wherever you went. I was first made aware of the ghosts when I was working in the spa area. I was there late at night alone while cleaning and disinfecting the spa and washing the linens. I always saw shadows move down there. The spa is where I felt the most scared when I was alone. Once I was working in the morning shift and was helping to do the spa laundry, and I walked through there alone while carrying some linens, and I heard my name being said by what sounded like a man with a low, gravelly voice. I dropped the linens and ran out of there as fast as I could. I ran into my supervisor's office, and she remarked that I looked like I had just seen a ghost. I told her I didn't see one, but I heard one call my name. Well, she thought it was funny until something similar happened to her. My supervisor had a great many health problems, and she stayed in the bathroom a lot because her medicines made her nauseous. She said when she was in the bathroom, she heard someone say, "Are you okay?" She said she looked around and no one else was in the bathroom with her. Many guests who have stayed there have reported that a woman would come into their rooms at night and either tuck them in or would stand by their beds smiling at them. Some of the guests have packed the bags and left during the middle of the night because of that. They don't like being tucked in, apparently. One housekeeper said that one Sunday morning, a lady walked by her wearing old-fashioned clothes, and the housekeeper asked her if she needed anything. The lady replied no and floated down the hallway. That housekeeper quit, unfortunately. Other housekeepers have reported that glasses would break while they were in their rooms cleaning, that a couple of the TVs would turn themselves off and on at will, and the beds, which were freshly made, would have an imprint on them as if someone had sat on the bed. There had been a rumor going around that there was, for years, that a lady was killed and her boyfriend or husband at the end during the 30s and 40s. She had bellied up to the bar there and was flirting with a patrolman. Her boyfriend or husband became jealous and enraged, so later, when they got to room 215, he killed her. Whether or not this is true, I'm really not sure. I've done some research but couldn't find anything to substantiate that claim. The night auditors have reported seeing a male figure in the dining room. He would be standing by the grand fireplace, and they would say his ghost looks like Lucius Morse because there's a painting of him in the lobby, and they also have reported seeing a smoky-like fog descending the grand staircase. There have been 2 ghost investigations done at the inn in recent years. They have reported to catch EVPs of a woman screaming, the EVP in the spa telling one of the investigators to get out of there, and even called his name like it did to me. There are some speculations that the antiques the owner has brought in may have some ghosts attached to them. They may very well be more than the 3 known ghosts that dwell within the grounds of the 1927 Lake Lure Inn and Spa. If you're ever out visiting Ashenvale and the surrounding area, take a trip to Lake Lure area. That's very cool. I don't know. They're everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. I really believe that. We've got a call coming from Canada, so let's get on the horn here and see who it is. Hello, area code 306. You're on the air.
Hey, how's it going? First time caller.
Oh, welcome. Welcome. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, no problem. With regards to the story earlier about the gentleman who had the experience with the old medicine man, I think it's a difference between tribes too, right?
Sure.
And the only reason I say this is because I'm Northern Cree,
Oh, cool.
and I'm like I said, there's a lot of different stories between tribes.
Okay.
And I was going to say, that was a really good story. I really like that one.
Yeah, me too.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I love
First time
those.
I've heard of that kind of story.
Yeah. Yeah, those are powerful, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, was it? I don't know if you ever had any stories people call in or stories about things that attack you in your sleep. Like,
Oh,
I wouldn't say like night terrors exactly,
okay. Yeah. I mean,
but I can tell you that.
we have had stories like that, but I'd love to hear another one.
Sure, okay. I can tell you as being a guy who's Northern Korean, part Mohawk.
Uh-huh.
With the I kind of grew up on the reserve for the most part, and really didn't touch on much of the traditional stuff growing up. But in passing stories with my uncles and aunts and stuff, they used to tell us all kinds of really interesting little spiritual stories from the Northern Cree side of the family, right?
Okay.
But there were some stories I was told that I really wish I didn't know, but my uncles, being the way they were, would basically tell us, like, well, you probably don't want to know this, but it's just, keep it in mind as you grow older.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me stories about things that would come to you in your sleep and essentially try to scare the hell out of you. And, it was really uncomfortable to hear that. And
Yeah.
I can tell you, like, yeah, it does happen, like, as you get older.
Sure.
But from what he was telling me, though, it has to do with where you are as a character and kind of like where you are spiritually.
Okay.
And he said the reason why these things attack you in your sleep, well, first of all, it's trying to scare the hell out of you, right? But you said the reason why these things do that is to get that fear out of you. Like,
Sure.
as you get older, you'll eventually come to a point where you're tired of being afraid.
Yes.
So you'll kind of stop and, okay, you're scaring me. I know this. What do you want? And that was the point of these stories, he said. And I can tell you a couple of occasions on my side, I've had things attack me in my sleep. And, the first couple of times it is scary as hell, but I wouldn't say like, old, but the couple of times I've had things attack me in my sleep, it was, for the most part, it was more irritating after a while. And, it's easier to say that you can, it's easier to say that, I'll be prepared. But until it actually happens to you, it's a completely different story, right?
Oh, sure.
But I was talking to a coworker of mine who's actually one of my instructors. And I told him the story about certain spirits will attack you in your sleep. And I told him, you ever hear about the ones, the shadow hands, right? And he looked at me and like straight into my eyes and he said, oh yeah, I've seen those things.
Oh.
It was weird because like he knows exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Uh-huh.
And it is pretty wild. Like it's like you're in a dream within a dream. It's hard to explain, but the two occasions I've had this happen to me, it was quite literally like shadow hands, like all over, like covering your body.
Oh man.
And from what I was told, it's like I said, when it comes to First Nation stories, you really got to have an open mind. But from how it was explained to me by my uncles, is they're like, no matter how hard you try to fight it back, it'll put just as much strength trying to fight you, right?
Okay.
So it's weird. You kind of have to like let it do its thing or whatever it is, right? Because there's no point in fighting something like this off when it gives just as much as you give it, right?
Right.
So I haven't got to the point where I'll stop and say, what do you want? Because that's how some of the stories are with First Nation spirituality. It's like something's trying to scare the living daylights out of you.
Right.
But it's supposed to do that in a way to cleanse you, right? So you're ready to hear whatever this spirit's trying to give onto you, right?
Oh, okay.
Pretty well. Like, yeah, I've had that happen a couple times. And the last time it happened was probably about a couple months ago, I think.
Wow.
And it was like, I don't know, it seems very, very real, but at the same time, you can tell it's, it's a dream, right? So, from what I recall in the dream, I was lying in my bed, and it was dark as usual, whatever. And then I remember these arms coming out, and they didn't really come from any particular direction, but I knew that from the laying down perspective, these things started like, wrestling with me, right?
Oh.
So I was like, kind of, at first I was shocked. I was like, well, what the hell's going on here, right? And then after a while, the stories my uncles told me, it's like instantaneous. It popped into my head. It's like, okay, this is what this thing is. I don't know what it's trying to do. It's trying to like rest on me or something. And it went on from what I recall, it felt like forever.
Sure.
But after a while, I kind of like just laid there and I was like, okay, well, you don't scare me. But I woke up. I got up and then, it's kind of like lucid dreaming, right?
Yeah.
Where you feel like you can leave your body. That's kind of what it felt like. And when I woke up, the exact same, like how I was sleeping, was exactly how it was in my dreams. So when I got up, I immediately expected, oh shit, is this round two? So I got up, and it took a while for me to kind of like really wake up and go, what the hell is that? And then after a couple of hours going, I don't know if I want to go back to sleep.
I don't blame you.
Pretty wild stories, man.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I haven't mentioned this to hardly anybody, but I had one of those situations happen just a couple nights ago. I was dealing with something like that, and it was it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was horrifying, but it was just like, oh crap, it was. It's happened here and there through the years, but it did happen, and in my situation, my cat was on my lap when because I was kind of sitting straight up. I was sitting on a couch and fell asleep. It was like 3 a.m, and I decided, well, I got to get back to sleep, so I just kind of sat down and then my cat was on my lap. He jumped up and he was also. It was like boom! I was in this dream state all of a sudden, and I was fighting with something, and my cat was still in the same position in my dream, and the room was still there in my dream. So it's like a dream in that reality, but it's hard to figure out which is which. And my cat in the dream was going absolutely crazy, like hissing and like going after something. And I was like, oh my God, and I'm like, geez, I gotta get through this, because I felt like it was, what it felt like, honestly, what it was like, it was pushing me out of me, it was like, it felt like that. And I was like, oh, hell no. So, I got through it. And as it broke and I was waking up, the cat's hissing faded. It was so loud. It was like almost screaming and going after something on my legs. And then as I was waking up from it, that hissing sound was still in my ear, but it just faded into the sound of the fan on my furnace. And it was like, oh my God. And I looked down, my cat's just sitting there. Now, the weird part is as soon as I woke up, if it had just been that, I'd be like, oh, man, maybe that was just a dream. But suddenly, my cat is laying there, and all of a sudden he's looking at the ceiling and watching something with big eyes. And I'm like, oh, crap. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it was...
I've heard stories about people in my family who own pets, cats and dogs and stuff. They... in a way, they come out to be protectors. And what's kind of sad about that is they will fight off things that you, as a human, can't see, but something's there, right? But usually the sad part with pets is when something like that, a cat or a dog, protects you, it's usually not long later that particular pet will pass away, right?
Oh.
Which is sad.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's not a good thought. Huh.
Well, I mean, like I said, this is just from... first-hand stories from my aunts and uncles.
Sure.
I've never had it happen to me personally, but like I said, some of the dreams I've had about things attacking me in my sleep, those were, a lot of the times, those are very, very realistic. It's hard to explain unless it happened to you, but when I was younger, when it happened, I never really, my uncles didn't really, they waited until I was a bit older before they told me and my brother these, hey, be prepared, this is going to happen. It's like, oh crap. But I guess as you get older and I guess mature spiritually, you get more and more used to it, and that's that's one way I was always told about, like, hauntings, spirits, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Sometimes the spirits, they scare you, but there's a reason behind it, right? Like they're there to cleanse you with that fear. So you're like, okay, you have to be cleansed for whatever it is trying to pass you a message, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's, goes hand in hand with stuff that appears in your sleep, right?
that's a good point. I'd never really thought about that. Is there a message on the other side of it? I didn't know. I mean, in my situation, I was just like, oh hell no, So I'm in the cage match
Well,
suddenly.
like I said, I haven't really been to that point where I can get that message because I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
nope, I'm just gonna wake up.
Yeah, well, good for you. Yeah, and good for me, I guess too, that I woke up. But it was a really surreal experience. So it's kind of funny that you would call in and share this because it's something.
Well, I've been kind of debating on calling in for like the last couple of weeks. I'm a new listener. I've been listening to your show for probably about 2 weeks now, and I think I came across your show through Sasquatch Chronicles.
Oh yeah, Wes's show. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's
Yeah,
a friend as well. So I'm glad that you
yeah.
found us, and I'm glad that you find that you're enjoying it. I hope you continue to enjoy it, and please
Oh
feel
yeah,
feel.
as much as we can with this whole quarantine thing going on.
Well, exactly. I mean, we probably won't get together and have beers, but at least we can get together this way.
Unfortunately. Well, one of these days I'm gonna try to get your email. I'll send you some sweetgrass.
Oh,
It's
sweet.
pretty good stuff when you want to cleanse your home.
Yes, please. I'd love to. And as a matter of fact, I have sage, but I've been thinking I got to get a hold of some sweetgrass. So it's funny. Yeah, see how the
Oh
universe
yeah.
works. That's amazing. Very cool, brother. Yeah, my email is.
Once the postal thing kind of picks up, I suppose.
Yeah, that's all right. But my email is actually paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So if you want
Okay,
to
perfect.
reach out to me, we'll coordinate that. But thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
For sure, no problem.
All right, man. Well, thanks for calling in. What was your name, by the way?
Oh, yes. It's kind of funny. My name is Ken Trail and Mix in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Okay, brother. Well, thanks. It's great to meet you, and thank you so much for calling in.
For sure. I hope my audio comes out.
Yeah, I got you EQ'd, I think, okay. So I think you're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, take care,
Well, have
brother.
a good night.
You too. Thanks a bunch.
Bye.
Oh, that's really neat. It's always fun to meet new listeners. And it's really cool that more listeners are coming in and finding the show. That to me is totally exciting. Very cool. But where are we at? I guess, yeah, this is about a full hour now. Again, I apologize for the rookie start tonight, guys. It's certainly wasn't intended that way, but that's how it worked out. But, all things for a reason. I guess tonight the show was supposed to go a little later. So we did just as we were told. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much. And have a great night. Hold on. And remember, I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. Good night, everybody. And I'll be back tomorrow night with the 2-hour Friday show. So I hope you'll join me. I don't know what we're going to get into, but it'll be fun, I'm sure. All right. Good night, everybody. Sweet dreams.